Across the other side. Hello, my name's Graham Winkle. I'm the author of Mei Mey monster books. I'm here in Caithness in Scotland, the very top of Scotland, the very most northerly tip. I'm looking just behind the camera. There's down ahead and across there to the Caithness. Here I'm on the edge of Loch Mey, the castle of Mei on the horizon just behind me. I'll probably scare them away now through talking to the camera. There's a couple of heron on the other side of the log. I was just noticing coming across this common grazing ground there are some deer. It's a beautiful area for wildlife. And today, although I am on the edge of Loch Mey, I'm not going to talk about Loch Mey monster. I'm going to talk about another monster, or should I say small dinosaur. His name is Mei Mey.
A long time ago, there lived a gentle, friendly little dinosaur called Mei Mey, which in Mandarin Chinese means beautiful girl. She lived in the mysterious land we know as China. Mei Mey was a very pretty dinosaur with big brown eyes, a pleasant rounded nose, and a mouth that was constantly set in a dreamy, droopy smile. She was smallish, creamy white, and looked a little like a cross between a seal cub and a chicken. Mei Mey loved sleeping. She would curl up wherever she found herself and drift off into a warm, pleasant dream, and the more she slept, the more beautiful she became. In fact, this is where the saying, beauty sleep, comes. One wonderful clear blue day, the ground shook, the sun went out and never returned. Mei Mey felt sleepier and sleepier, and colder, until finally she climbed to a cosy little hole, curled into a tiny ball, and with a slight shiver, fell into a deep, deep sleep. Many centuries passed, and Mei Mey slept and slept a peaceful, happy sleep. She found herself in the middle of a very big, smelly rubbish tip, with lots of things that didn't smell very nice, and even stranger things that tasted of nothing. It was quite warm, and something that looked like a very large dinosaur was rummaging through the various colourful bottles and bags and moving them from one place to another. Large grey and white birds rummaged around, feasting on the filth and shouting loudly. It was not long before the large dinosaur picked her up with his huge mouth and put on a gigantic boat with lots of other rubbish. Mei Mey was very scared and tried to hide in a large empty plastic drum, but as she squeezed herself into the small opening, she dislodged the plastic drum from its perch, and it fell off the boat into the sea. It bobbled around aimlessly with the other bottles, bags and bits of plastic that now littered the ocean around her. Mei Mey was washed out to sea with millions of other pieces of rubbish. Some of it floated alongside Mei Mey's drum, and other pieces sank into the depths. Still more wrapped themselves around seaweed and coral. Fish bobbed around pieces of plastic wrapping, and some of the wrapping even got eaten by whales. Mei Mey saw many things as she floated and bobbled around in the sea. Some were very scary, like gigantic, mountainous waves and terrifying thunderous storms. Some days were wonderful, like when porpoises danced around her, spinning her plastic drum in play. Some things were very sad. Turtles, fish and even seabirds died because they tried to eat some of the plastic. Other sea life, like jellyfish, seemed to live where nothing else did, and very scary, dirty, dark parts of the sea. Mei Mey watched some of the colourful jellyfish move to cleaner waters with her, but now they seemed poisonous to the usual things that ate them. A strange dark sadness filled the air, like the moments before a storm. Mei Mey closed her eyes and began to sleep a deep, deep sleep, and hoped she would awake from this terrible journey. Days came and went. The sun rose and set in equal portion, and finally Mei Mey awoke. She was not sure how long she'd been asleep, but she felt as though she was spinning around and around. Was it porpoises again, or was she still dreaming? She was now up to her neck in water, and she was sinking fast. Mei Mey struggled with all her might to escape from her plastic home, and finally, after a very tight squeeze and a frantic struggle, she plopped out into the swirling ocean. Terrifyingly, she was now trapped in a huge whirlpool, which she tried desperately to swim out of, but she was not really built for swimming. She tried and tried, but with a huge gasp she was sucked under. Now Mei Mey could hold her breath for a very long time, but she was scared as she sank deeper into the depths. It was cold and dark in the great swirls of blackness. She watched bits of net, plastic, wood and weeds. She saw seals dancing in and out of the watery funnel, and helpless fish trapped amongst more and more rubbish. Suddenly, a large plastic bag wrapped itself around Mei Mey's face, and she could not get it off. She hated its clammy, deathly grip, and began to struggle desperately for her life as it wrapped itself tightly around her neck. At that moment, when Mei Mey was ready to sink into despair, she saw something terrifying surging towards her. It looked a little like a seal, but it had the head and body of a human woman. She looked very beautiful, but almost as darkly terrible. The woman stretched out a thin white arm and pulled the bag from Mei Mey's face. Mei Mey stared in fear. The woman had piercing blue eyes, hair as black as night, and jagged white teeth set inside the darkest of red lips. The woman reached out and held Mei Mey's head in her hands, and suddenly she began to speak to Mei Mey. "I am Svelga. I am the source of death for some and the giver of life to many. Today I give life to you, and you are forever mine. Yet I need your help, little one. The men that walk the dry land have lost all sense of life, and I need you to help them find it." Svelga was a sea witch with great magical power, and she controlled the flow of salt to the ocean with a huge whirlpool where the great seas of the world met. Mei Mey listened intently, willing to do whatever was asked of her, as she was indebted to this strange part woman, part fish. "I am she who fills the ocean with salt, that all may live in the many waters of the world, so all may survive on the dry land. But I am losing my power. The waste of the dry world is being drawn into my realm, and we are too few to fight it. Soon the life we give will be at an end. You must find a way to stop dry people polluting my realm, or your world will also become a frozen, barren waste. I, Svelga, will give you this power, as I cannot walk the dry land." Svelga finished and looked intensely at Mei Mey, holding her tightly and whispering a strange chant like the clicks of a dolphin, and then she was gone into the swirling depths of the ocean. Mei Mey instantly seemed to grow in strength and energy, and was now able to swim slowly to the shore, still a little cold and very, very hungry.
Spent her days picking up litter from the beach and eating shellfish that clung onto the rocks. How would she ever be able to pick up all the rubbish in the world? The air was so much colder. She wasn't used to it. She was moving so slowly. Oh, look at that. Lovely aircraft. So glad that it just flew straight over my head, dreadfully slowly. She began to wonder where on earth she was. The wind was bitterly cold and stronger than she remembered, but the land had a desolate beauty. Almost at once she found out the answer to her question. "Are you a chicken?" A little voice from behind her said. "I'm not a chicken, I am Mei Mey," she replied, spinning around quickly. I'm not sure who was more surprised at Mei Mey's outburst, but as they both looked at each other in disbelief, they both suddenly burst into laughter.
Mei Mey found out the voice belonged to a little girl named Cassie, and she quickly began explaining to Cassie what had happened to her. She started with the sun disappearing and getting cold, her long sleep, and the huge dinosaurs that moved rubbish. She told of her trip across the seas filled with wonder and waste, and meeting the mermaid who she had promised to help. "Mei Mey," Cassie said in a very serious tone, "did you know that all the dinosaurs are now dead?" "But I saw big dinosaurs that moved rubbish around," she replied. "They're called cranes and diggers. They're mechanical and men work them. The only dinosaurs on Earth now are like bones and are in buildings called museums, and museums only keep dead things." "I'm the last?" Mei Mey asked sadly. "Yes, and I think you come from a long way away. You're in Mei, near John O'Groats, the top of Scotland. You must have come from America or China. Your name sort of sounds Chinese. There are no big rubbish boats here, My dad says that ferries sometimes drop rubbish when no one's looking though. Would you like to come home with me? I'll find lots of nice things for you to eat. Okay, said Mei Mey, feeling excited about the thought of food. Hide under my coat. I'm pretty sure that Dad will not understand if he sees you. Cassie thrust the tiny little creature into her coat and walked slowly back across the beach to her dad's car.